This is supposed to be her top priority. We've had 2 UQs, a debate and this statement in the last few weeks on this chaos, and she hasn't done any of them. If the Home Secretary is too frit to attend this House and take responsibility for her decisions, she should get out the way and let someone else do the job.
Robert Jenrick, Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I extend my apologies on behalf of the Department to the Right Honourable Lady and indeed to yourself for the delay in providing a copy of this statement. But with your permission, I'd like to make a statement about the public health considerations in asylum accommodation. As the House will be aware, on the morning of the 19th of November, an individual who had arrived in the UK on the 12th of November and who had been staying at the Manston processing site sadly died in hospital. Initial test results for an infectious disease were negative, but a follow-up PCR was positive. We must now await the post-mortem results to determine the cause of death, and our thoughts are with the individual's family. There has been speculation about the wider health implications across the asylum accommodation system, and so I wanted to come to the House to set out the facts, to outline the steps that have already been taken to protect migrants and the general public, and to reassure the public with the additional precautionary measures that we are now taking. The control and testing of infectious diseases is led by the UK Health Security Agency and the Department for Health and Social Care, and the Home Office continue to work closely with both of them, taking their advice on all of these matters and following it. As part of our ongoing dialogue, the Home Secretary and I were updated on the situation over the weekend by Dame Jenny Harries of the UK HSA, who confirmed to us that 50 cases of diphtheria have been reported in asylum accommodation. It's important to emphasise that the UK HSA has been clear that the risk to the wider UK population from onward transmission of diphtheria is very low, thanks in no small part to our excellent childhood immunisation programme, and because the infection is typically passed on through close, prolonged contact with a case. The UK HSA confirmed that they believe it is likely these cases were developed before they entered the UK. The Home Office has worked closely with the NHS and the UK HSA to identify and to isolate anyone with a diphtheria infection, including providing diphtheria vaccinations and moving confirmed cases into isolation. While these robust processes and plans for this type of situation are already in train, it's absolutely right that we now are vigilant. That is what the public would expect, and that is what we are doing. This includes robust screening processes on arrival at Western Jetfoil in Dover to proactively identify those with symptoms of diphtheria, round-the-clock health facilities at Manston, including emergency department consultants and paramedics, guidance in multiple languages on spotting the symptoms of diphtheria, an enhanced diphtheria vaccination programme offering to all those arriving at Manston, and I can confirm that of those who arrived at the facility this weekend, 100% took up that vaccine offer. Testing for those presenting themselves with symptoms and for close contacts of those cases. Those testing positive are being isolated in a designated place. Today we're going above and beyond the UK HSA baseline by instituting new guidance on the transportation and accommodation of individuals displaying diphtheria symptoms. So from today, no one presenting with symptoms will progress into the asylum accommodation system. They will either remain at Manston, isolating for a short period, or they will travel to a designated isolation centre in secure transport, where they will be treated until deemed medically fit. This is a well-practiced protocol from COVID times. We will also continue to ensure all asylum accommodation providers are given access to the very latest public health advice from the UK HSA and are aware of their responsibilities for testing and isolating cases of infectious diseases. We'll continue working with the UK HSA to ensure that the arrangements are of the highest standard and the UK HSA has everything that it needs from the Home Office. We're engaging with French counterparts to assess the state of infectious diseases in the camps in northern France. Mr. Speaker, I fully understand and appreciate the concerns that have been raised, and I can assure the House that the Home Office is acutely aware of our responsibility both to those in care but also to the British public. For myself, for the Home Secretary and for the Government as a whole, public health is paramount, and we will take all steps necessary to ensure that the public are protected. I commend this statement to the House.
We now come to the Shadow Secretary of State, Yvette Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and also for your words about obviously it was difficult to respond to a statement after just 10 minutes. But I thank the Immigration Minister for the information he's given us. I have to say, why is the Home Secretary not here? This is supposed to be her top priority. We've had two UQs, a debate and this statement in the last few weeks on this chaos, and she hasn't done any of them. You have to ask, what is she for? She obviously doesn't have a grip, and she has made this chaos worse. The government has failed to stop the proliferation of criminal gangs in the Channel, is still refusing to adopt Labour's proposal for a new National Crime Agency unit to target the gangs, and has failed to sort out the chaos in asylum decision-making, so they are only taking around half as many as 6 years ago, even though they have more staff, and just 2% of last year's small boat cases have been decided, creating a backlog of nearly 100,000 people waiting more than 6 months for a decision, compared to just 4,000 when they took office, all of which has led to a completely inappropriate use of hotels at the last minute, with no proper information for local councils and no proper information for public health officials. And then, of course, the chaotic handling of the situation at Manston. The information that the Minister has just given us is that there are 50 diphtheria cases. Can he confirm that that compares to just 3 last year? Can he tell us when ministers were first told of diphtheria cases at Manston? When were they warned? By mid-October, the Home Office admitted publicly that there were cases at Manston, but on the 26th of October, the Home Office officials told the Select Committee they had sufficient health arrangements in place to address diphtheria. Clearly, they did not. The government still kept thousands of people in overcrowded conditions, described by one person as being huddled around fan heaters, thousands of people in overcrowded conditions trying to stay warm. Clearly, these are conditions which make it easy for infectious diseases to spread. The processes that he has just described now clearly are important, but why on earth were they not put in place many weeks ago? It took until the 11th of November, after thousands of people had been held there for weeks, in Manston for weeks, for screening and vaccinations on diphtheria to be recommended for everyone passing through Manston. What on earth were they doing in the meantime? Because even then, on that very same day, the Home Office was moving people who'd been in Manston into hotels across the country without even telling councils or public health officials, and including in one case, specifically telling the council these were not transfers from Manston, even though they were. Others where councils were told nothing at all, and no information for public health officials about whether people needed further diphtheria screening and vaccinations, including leaving people to seek treatment for themselves for diphtheria symptoms at local A&E departments. The Health Secretary has said that 500 people have now been screened and vaccinated. What about the other several thousand people who have been in Manston, wherever they now are in the country? Have they been screened or vaccinated for diphtheria as well? If not, why on earth not? Because that was the public health recommendation nearly 3 weeks ago, and that was already late. Have all those with possible symptoms now been given precautionary antibiotics? Again, if not, why not? We're told diphtheria is an easy infection to treat and to vaccinate against, which is why we have a universal vaccination policy in the UK. But that needs proper information for health officials to be able to use, and it needs the Home Office to get a grip. Clearly, the government has ignored health advice, and it's also ignored legal advice. The Business Secretary said publicly that when he was Home Office Minister, he was advised he had to act as he was breaking the law. The Permanent Secretary has said now the Home Secretary was given the same legal advice. So why didn't she act, either on the legal advice or on the health advice? I'm sure the Immigration Minister is working really hard to try and sort this out. The problem is that everyone else is struggling to clear up the Home Secretary's chaos, and she isn't even here. It is chaotic. This issue is too important not to have a grip in place, and if the Home Secretary is too frit to attend this House and take responsibility for her decisions, she should get out the way and let someone else do the job.